Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to finish up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's special selection comes at us from Michael. Virus, the agent that shapes the desert. Avant garde metal rock from Norway. This is the title track of their 2011 album, same vocalist and guitarist as Ved Buenos Ende. I've reacted to their song called I Sang for the Swangs. Yeah, I vaguely remember that. Virus, I think I've actually listened to before also. So let's dive into this. See what Virus is bringing to the table today. That bass line all ready to start. I'm here for it. Yes, I'm digging how this is bass driven. I could do with a little bit more variation though. Really interested to see where this goes. Very fun vocal delivery. Yeah, so we're jumping between two different chords. Here's our tension and resolution. Although it didn't resolve. It didn't go back to where it was prior. We're still in tension, but it's a different kind of tension.
Catacombs where our dead rivers run, the constant red glows bright. 1,000 arms point to the sun, the sky paints clean and white. Into the bestial season, the angry animals are all in sight. Just fiercely rotating, roaring in between their
I love the tom run that we get at the end of this. It's an interesting way to wrap up this vaguely waltzy idea.
One link of the aggregation. A day in the life of the agent. One link of the aggregation.
Ooh, what? Those first three notes are such an odd rhythm. It's faster than our beat, but it's not as fast as a triple it would be. It's a really strange weighting. Back to the 3/4.
Chase down towards the spine.
Yeah, I kind of figured it was going to have an abrupt ending. There just wasn't enough time to wrap that up. I saw we had 4 seconds left, and I was just like, yeah, they're just going to have to stop it at the end of a loop. Interesting. For almost 5.5 minutes, it doesn't have a lot going on in it. Ideally, I think we only have 3 ideas. The structure of it is fairly linear. If we include our intro as a unique idea, which I typically don't when we talk about structure, A, B, A, B, C, B, the typical structures, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, intro, pre-choruses, post-choruses, these are just kind of seen as transition ideas. But here, our intro is like a minute and a half long. It's over 20% of the track. I gotta include it. So if our intro is one section, we're gonna have an A. Then we have the 4/4 vocal section, which is our B, our 3/4 waltzy vocal section, which is our C, and both our B and our C are rather lengthy. And then we have a D section, which is, I think, a variation on our A. The ideas were familiar, but it might just be that we return to 4/4 and that the basic roles given to the instruments is fairly similar throughout. Honestly, the time signature is the only thing that really differentiates most of this. But I think there is a D section, or we can call it an A prime, a variation on our A. We head back to our C section, and then we finish out with another variation, I think. It has some ideas that I recall from earlier, but the guitar moves a little bit. It actually has a lead element to it. So we can call this an E section if you want. And that's just interesting. It's linear, but loops back and calls back to a variety of different sections. Now, as I stated, the A, B, and C sections are all doing something very familiar. Very similar, I should say. Our guitar is noise mostly. It sits on a single note and has a static rhythmic pattern to it. Our C, I think it was our C section, the 3/4. It shifted between two notes, but in our intro, it really didn't really move at all. Same with our B section, just really static, and especially when we got to the D section, it was just static. We had no chordal movement at all, despite it being our foundational component. The bass is what leads the band then. The bass has the moving part in almost every single section, even in our E section, our outro, when we have a guitar line that actually moves and isn't just playing a single note per 4-bar phrase, the bass is still moving behind it. Our bass is the leader of the band. It's always moving. It even provides a semi-chordal structure too, as well as emphasizing specific notes within its phrasing. While our guitars don't move at all in a 4 bar phrase, our bass does. And it emphasizes these key notes that feel like shifting chordal ideas. It's interesting to pair that against the staticness of the guitars, which imply a chordal staticness, not moving, not changing emotional areas, and then the bass feeling like it does. There's that division there, and I think that's very cool. It also creates these really nice dualities, or not dualities, dyads, because we have a tone that doesn't shift and we have notes that move on top of it. So we have this home feeling, and we can feel how far away from home we've gotten. And each of the notes that increase in distance up until a specific point also increase in tension. They have different emotions to those dyads. So it creates an interesting feeling through it all. The guitar tone is very fuzzy though. Um, so some of the emotional aspect of the dyads are lost as those components of the notes are shaved off from our guitar. Our drums are sort of sitting in the middle ground where they're not as technical as our bass, but they're not extremely simple either. They just have a really great time of holding down the time signature for everything else. And well, then we have our vocals, which I love the delivery on these. There's this really wide showmanship vibrato to it. Um, Although I suppose it could also just be a vibrato style from another culture as well. Um, but it's to me it's very uh oh, maybe I don't have a word for it. It's very presenting. It's not a great verb. But that's what it feels like somebody presenting a play or presenting an act at a circus or something. It has that ringleader vibe to it is what I get. It's an interesting thing to pair with the rest of this as it feels totally out of place for me, but also perfectly in line with the music. Like I can't imagine this song with different vocals now, but when they first came in, it was a little off, but it's like, wow, those are the vocals they went with. Um, but it was very endearing and very uh, unique. Definitely creates a character to at least this song, if not the whole band. I don't know if the vocalist always sings like this, but it's quite unique and gives them a specific characteristic. So that is pretty much the makeup of the entire track. Every section is comprised of one of these, of this idea: leading bass, static guitars, interesting vocal duets, and pretty run of the mill drumming. The only difference is our final outro, our E section, where our guitar gets a moving line alongside the bass. And I don't really think it did anything to change up the bass feel. The section really didn't feel much different than any of the others. But it was neat to hear. I don't exactly know why they chose such a short moment to change up their formula at the end of the track when the song was over rather than something in the middle to help break up the monotony of the style. But there was a little bit of shakeup there at the end. Speaking of overall tone, I don't really have an emotion to this, but it's very static. Our A section, B, C, D, E, they all feel the same. Sonically, there is nothing that changes between these. Chordally, there aren't really strong connotations of chord in here, which is probably why I have such a loose emotional connection to it. It sort of just is. It's like a song that just exists. It doesn't necessarily want to be understood. It doesn't necessarily want to even have a meaning for somebody to try to find an understanding of it. It just kind of is. It almost feels like background music at a lot of times. Not even like scoring a big moment where you want the emotion of the music to help inform your audience of what's going on in, visually, a sad part of the song or an exciting part of the song or anything like that. It just kind of is. It's that background music during the scenes where nothing is happening. We're just progressing the the film from one moment to the next. It could just be a simple dialogue scene, right? And that's kind of what the music feels like. It just kind of is. It's there. Maybe it helps transition between different ideas on the album. On its own, though, it's just a static, almost blank canvas. Really, the most defining part of it to me is the static nature of the guitars, and not only just the static elements of the chordal movement, which is basically non-existent, but the static sound from the tons of compression on the guitar as well. Um, it really does feel like a song about nothing, nothing of import happening, I should put that way. But it sounds cool. I can't deny that. It has a really nice riffage to it, I guess. They don't, man, it's not even like riffs. See, and this is weird because I can admit that it sounds cool, but what sounds cool about it? And I can't pinpoint anything. The guitars aren't moving, the distortion is there. I mean, it's not like it's over the top. We're not looking at black metal or post rock levels of distortion. Maybe it's just the bass that I find really cool. I don't know. I would not mind listening to this again though. I really it's kind of groovy. It's got a sick bass line to it. I like the vocal melodies, but like I don't have any emotional connection to it. It doesn't really do anything, but it sounds cool. I don't know. And that's kind of the whole breakdown there. We did the structure, all the instruments, and that's kind of it. There was that one transition I really liked coming out of our. Oh, we gotta talk about that too. I think it was coming out of our D section back into our 3/4, and we kind of cut out all the instruments for a second with just the vocals, and they started a line or something, and it led us back into the 3/4 from where we were at. And I thought that was pretty clean. But we got to talk about time signature. The beginning of the song is in 4/4. Everything after that is in 3/4, and it has a waltzy feel. And I feel like I bring the waltz up every time 3/4 comes in, but it's just such a typical way of subdividing 3/4. See, when we subdivide something like 4/4, we can accent 1 and 3, we can accent 2 and 4, and we could even do some oddball stuff in there, like accenting 1 and 4, or 2 and 3, or just accent one of the beats. But the typical things are to break it down right in the middle and hit on your odd numbers or your even numbers so that you always have a beat without accent and a beat with accent, and it just alternates. 3/4, we only have 3 beats, so it's going to be more difficult to cut it right in half. We would have to accent every beat in a half, which tends to feel irregular to most people, even though it is perfectly symmetrical, because accented off beats feel off. um, and if you accent 2 of the beats, you're going to have this weightedness where you have 2 beats of accents and 1 beat without, which can feel a bit fatiguing. Much like how black metal with blast beats feels like it accents every hit. We're accenting 66% of hits. It still has that element of too many accents. It can sound more aggressive or it can sound fatiguing. It's easier just to accent one. Yeah, two is too many, and you can't do two in a split way where it's perfectly in half, so we go to the next number down, which happens to be one. Accenting in the middle of the bar kind of works, but it feels a little weird. Accenting at the end of the bar can work at times as well, but it feels like it's a bit late, and it can kind of shift the feeling of the bar to where beat three feels like beat one because it's accented, because culturally we're so used to the downbeat of the bar getting accented, and it can disrupt the feeling of the song. It can actually make it feel more disjointed that way. So typically we're just going to accent beat one. When you accent beat one, though, you get a waltzy feel. Bum 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 bum. Particularly when your bass helps accent beat one and your other notes are a higher in pitch, so you get the bum 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 bum. That is the textbook style of waltz. This doesn't typically line into the idea of the rising pitches, but we do have that accented one beat, which is why I call it semi or vaguely waltz. But there really isn't much other way to uh, do a 3/4 without it getting a bit more complex. So if you ever wonder, like every time he brings up 3/4, he says waltz. That's why. It's really hard to write 3/4 and not get waltzy without getting proggy. You kind of have to pick one. You're either complicated or you're waltz. Um, but yeah, so this 3/4 section though takes up a majority of the track, and I was trying to figure out, what it was aiming for. Why was our intro in 4/4 and this wasn't? And I've got nothing. The only difference I can see is the vocals came in. Sonically, atmospherically, they're very similar. The way the roles are divvied up, which instruments have spotlight, it's all very similar. So it almost feels like they just wanted to change things up. I don't know that there's anything to read into that. Um, so I guess we're gonna hit some lyrics and see what's going on. Because I'm really curious. The song is not really telling me much. So I'm wondering if the lyrics will. Alright. The agent that shapes the desert, you're a well of dense fluids. From the basin of time you have derived from the lakes you left behind. The boundless celestial season drags the sands of time in between your flecks of sparks, a constellation of departed stars. I really like the flow to this. There's a really nice up and downness to it where it almost feels like every other syllable is accented. It's not perfectly like that, but there's a few parts that just naturally flow in a very almost a speaking rhythm. But I don't know what this agent that shapes the desert. I mean, that would just be like wind and time, right? So, but it says you're a well of dense fluids. From the basin of time you have derived from the lakes you've left behind. So you're a product of the time, and you've taken those resources, that you've taken that time and left those lakes metaphorically empty, which is kind of how time works. We don't ever really get those resources back. Every second you take is a second lost. There's no way to bank them or store them away for future use. I don't know, maybe I'm reading into that. The boundless celestial season drags the sands of time. So, uh, yeah, like I kind of get the vibe of it, but I don't know how I can explain the boundless celestial season. It's almost like saying that, uh, you know, time as viewed in the infinity of the cosmos. We're looking at basically an infinite amount of hours that space has existed. Um, this boundless season, a season with no start or end, drags the sands of time. In between your flecks of sparks, a constellation of departed stars. Your flecks of sparks. And these are both tiny things. Sparks are not exactly large either, but flecks is also a word used to talk about small things. So, in between the smallness of your smallest actions, a constellation of departed stars, a group of stars that are no longer with us. This almost, I mean, this is on such grand scale, just based on the raw ideas they're talking about. It almost makes me feel like somehow they're referring to, it could be humanity, Earth, our solar system as a whole, or it could also just be humanity's time or our individual time being so small compared to the infiniteness that has existed before us and that will exist after us, whether it's our individual before and after or our collective humanity before and after. Or even before and after the Big Bang, our solar system itself. The day in the life of the agent, one blink of the eye pre-creation. So yeah, we're still talking about really large scale stuff. One day of this agent is a blink of our eye. What feels so small to us is so small to them. The day is nothing more than less than a second. You know, from the catacombs where our dead rivers run, the constant red glows bright. 1,000 arms point to the sun, the sky picked clean and white. Into the bestial season, the angry animals are all in sight, just fiercely rotating, roaring in between their specks of light. A day in the life of the agent, one blink of the eye pre-creation. I don't know what this group is talking about. Catacombs where our dead rivers run. 1,000 arms point to the sun. Angry animals are in sight, fiercely roaring between their specks of light. That I think is talking about that final bit, talking about our between the specks of light would be our birth and our death. Those I think are the two specks of light, which for humans is years. We're talking about a long time, but it's just specks of lights. It's quick moments in time when viewed from such a high level. But I'm not quite sure about the rest of that. The final stanza set. Analyzing eyes howl, you watch the ashes engulf the sky. Known pulses hits the air behind a veil, your breath you sneer. The radiant tunnels stashed now grasp the atmosphere, washed away towards the tides and chased down towards the spine. Yeah, this is getting quite above my head. I'm kind of grasping onto vague concepts here, almost like a god or celestial being or fourth dimensional being viewing Earth. Maybe a larger concept than Earth, maybe the whole solar system, but something about our humanity and having wisdom and experience that far exceeds our lives. And so everything that's talked about here that is big to us, our growth and evolution from animal to human, our strifes and squabbles, both on personal level, but also on a global level when we have wars and stuff like that. All these things are just, according, from the perspective of this larger being. It's just animals howling, right? Our birth is nothing but two specks of light. The time that we spend on this planet, while we understand is far too short, feels like forever. And yet to this person, it's just blips. So close together, you can't even see the distance. time wise between the two events of light and death. They're just flex. That's kind of what I'm getting here, which is a very cool idea. But I'm not really getting a pairing of that with the with the music. The music didn't have me prepared for anything like this. This is just on such a bonkers scale. And the music was rather simple. But like I mentioned, there really is no emotional aspect of the music. It just kind of is. And I kind of feel that nonchalant, was it apathy in the lyrics as well. It's just more of observation. It doesn't feel like there's any emotional connection to our events in our lives and our history and what we're doing from this larger being. It's more just like watching a show. Everything is so small that it can't even be seen as urgent or important to this being. Scale and perspective are so important to connection. And I think that distance is showcased both in the lyrics and the music, but that's really the only thing I can tie the two together on. Interesting stuff. Those are my thoughts on on viruses, the agent that shapes the desert. Let me know what you thought. Do you enjoy it or not? Anything that stands out to you? Anything you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Let me know. Hit me up in the comments and put your thoughts in the comments. I swear I had that rolling a lot better in my head. Let me know what you thought in the comment section. Above that is a description box. And there is a link for Linktree. Takes you to this menu right here. It has links for everything related to the channel. You can find multiple ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord community, and a link to the music I've created, as well as a bunch more. Go ahead and check it out. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three. We'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC. As usual, we'll continue on with this week's theme and check out another special selection. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.